Welcome back to Energyscapes, Ocean and Space. I've just finished reading a really interesting book that I wanted to discuss. We'll discuss certain aspects of it, and that's this one by David Childress, Andromeda, The Secret Files, and it's the flying submarines of the SS from Nazi Germany in World War II. And he goes over evidence from declassified documents and witnesses and experts that the SS during and after World War II had access to and developed a technology around discs and cigar or tube-shaped objects or UFOs and propellantless propulsion technology that they were testing and developed. And surrounding that is another person called the Ralph et al., or the document dump from Ralph et al., and a lot of the information's come from that. And there was also a movie put out back then called UFOs, Secrets of the Third Reich. And what comes up in here is that the smaller disc-shaped craft that was supposedly developed by this SS secret program, about 30 feet in diameter with a dome. They made a whining sound when they started up, and they had an electric glow. They had a whirling gyroscopic tornado of electrified mercury plasma. So there's a rotating electromagnetic field that influenced gravity and reduced mass, and these are apparently flying around or being tested, not so much in combat, but tested and flown maybe for transportation of individuals and or equipment. And of course this moved on to trials in the tube-shaped submarine-like cigar craft that was seen around before and after World War II, especially in the 1950s and 60s. There were heaps of sightings of these objects. So after World War II, of course, intelligence found documents that referred to their existence. They couldn't confirm it, but on interrogation of some of the individuals supposedly involved or certain people, evidence suggested that perhaps the Germans had built such craft before and during World War II. And we can go on if we look at, for example, I've got some papers here, but the Aldebaran mystery refers to Dr. Hermann Oberth, who comes up and amongst all this too, because he pioneered rocket design for the German Reich during World War II, and then again in America afterwards as part of Operation Paperclip. But he states here, for example, I mean this is third-hand knowledge, so I can't verify it, but he states that we cannot take the credit for our recorded advancement in certain scientific fields alone. We have been helped. By whom is the text here? The people of other worlds, he replies. And then it goes on and talks about Werner von Braun as well. And he echoed similar knowledge of the reality of non-human help. In 1959, a statement here, we found ourselves faced by powers which are far stronger than hitherto assumed and whose base is at present unknown to us. More I cannot say at present. We are now engaged in entering into close contact with those powers. Within 6 or 9 months' time, it may be possible to speak more with more precision on the matter. So we don't know who they were referring to, but there's some very interesting comments in there. And I do note that Hermann Oberth went on to write lecture notes in 1954 about flying saucers. I have the document here, and how they work, their propulsion systems or suggested propulsion systems, and even some brief comments or lectures on about their aerodynamics and their origin or possible non-human origin. So that kind of corroborates what Childress was referring to in this book here. And if I carry on from there, because we've got more to discuss about this, there was a German SS officer called Rudel that they suggest could have piloted such craft, given that he was so well known as a combat pilot in Stuka dive bombers and was tied up with the SS supposedly in all this as well. And we have to remember that there were bases or submarine bases developed outside of Nazi Germany too, in South America, Canary Islands, for example, and up to 100 submarines went missing after the war. And the evidence suggests that they took off to these bases and they took this technology with them before Russia and America could get hold of it, and kept developing these discs and tube-shaped craft into the 50s and 60s. Thus all the sightings, especially during the Korean War apparently, extensive sightings of cigar and disc-shaped craft. In the 50s and 60s, there was even explanations of close-up contactee reports with these, going inside them, having tours of them, speaking with the operators or occupants as well. And an incident with the Australian warship Hobart during the Korean War as well, with anomalous objects, supposedly cigar and disc-shaped. So that comes out as well. As to the origins, it's very interesting looking at the origin and whether they were invented or technology was acquired or back engineered. I've done enough work in the last few years now to suggest that it's both. For example, Victor Schauberger comes up during these books, and it's suggested that he was involved in the process. Although he's mentioned in here as being involved in development of the technology, and suggested that he was part of Operation Paperclip. And this is the guy here. A book's come out about him because he was a forestry worker and had lots of inventions, but also it's suggested that he came up with propellantless propulsion technology as well, although I don't find him directly mentioned in Operation Paperclip by Annie Jacobsen. But there's evidence suggests that he was approached by the Americans after World War II because they became aware of him and his brother, because I have another document here called Burial of Living Technology that I found got in another another document of incredible inventions, and it's a story of how Hitler approached him and demanded that he develop a craft that used his technology and didn't need fossil fuels, because apparently during the war they were trying to find a way to keep their war machine going that didn't rely on fossil fuels. And that might have been the impetus to develop these discs and tubes, irrespective of whether they had non-human help or not. But Victor seems to be tied up in it all somehow, and he went to America and of course signed away his intellectual property rights, and his brother didn't, and then he returned to Europe. So that creates an interesting situation, as I think that after World War II, America became quite aware of what was going on with this technology, even though they couldn't find it or get access to it. We had Operation High Jump down in Antarctica, of course, and David Childress's book does go into a lot of detail about what was going on with all that as well. But that's another whole other story there. But what I do want to suggest is that the military and intelligence agencies in America wanted in on the game. They figured, hey, there's something going on here. This has to be happening, irrespective of Roswell and anything else going on at the time. Is that this propellantless technology was around and did exist, and it's either back engineered from acquired craft. It was invented by the likes of Victor Schauberger, and in combination with the fact that we've got people like Orberth here saying that they had help and it wasn't human help. So I think all this comes together into quite a story about human invention and non-human help or acquiring of the technology, and it all fits together. And it's been developed since then, and the National Security Act was signed, and then it all went covert and was compartmentalized. But the history is all there. There are so many books, documents, and papers now. I've spent the last 2 years working on this and trying to put the puzzle together, and I will pursue it to whatever end. So we will talk more soon.